Episode 259, Healing Postpartum Depression, Trauma, and Faith, Part 2, with Chassie Cox.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
In this second conversation with postpartum coach and mom of 5, Chassie Cox, Heather and Chassie go deep into what happens after the baby years and why postpartum is actually a lifelong experience. Chassie shares how years of untreated postpartum depression and anxiety led to a spiritual and emotional rock bottom, and how holistic healing, mind, body, and spirit completely changed her motherhood, marriage, and testimony of Jesus Christ. They explore nervous system regulation, inner child work, and how revisiting your story doesn't reopen wounds, but transforms pain into wisdom. This episode is especially for moms who feel like they are doing all the spiritual things, but still feel stuck, overwhelmed, or far from God. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. You are so lucky because you're getting a part 2 today to my conversation that I had with Chassie Cox. Hello, Chassie. Thanks for joining me again.
Hi, Heather. So glad to be back. So
I
glad.
am so happy that you're here. If you missed last week's conversation, you for sure need to go back and listen because it also will segue into this, but also because I don't know, like we talked about some good stuff and it was totally not planned. We just
Not planned at all, but it was very I don't know, spiritual, then postpartum, and then we went deep again into trauma. So if you haven't heard that, yeah, definitely go back because we let the spirit guide us. That's what we're going to say. And it was deep. It was deep.
Or our crazy wandering brains, and either one.
That's okay too.
But the reality of this conversation that we're going to continue having today is, yes, Chassie does work with people who are postpartum. And I actually really loved that you taught me that because I really kind of had the misinterpretation that postpartum is just kind of a short period after you have a baby. But I was at my grandma's house when I was recording last week and I got off the conversation and I told my Grandma, did you know that we're both postpartum? And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you're 93, I'm 50.
Yeah, postpartum is forever.
We're both postpartum. I'm like, doesn't that make us feel kind of young still? Anyway, that to say that this conversation is not, it spans so many generations. And so whatever age you are, like the things that we're talking about are still applicable and so helpful. Anyway, I just needed to say that because I found myself thinking about this a lot over the last week. So
yeah, and it's never too late to heal. And I actually have like a mini free workshop on that. Just like not trying to throw that out there, but throwing that out there. So if anyone wants to reach out to me on Instagram, I will send you that video. It's not too late to heal. And it talks all about how it's not too late to heal and what's really happening in your body right now. Even if you're postpartum at 45. 60,
that is
like you said.
Awesome. You know what? You should send that to me and I'll put it in the show notes. I can put the link to that.
Absolutely. We'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, click below.
Well, and then they can, they can go try to find it that way, or we can make it easy and just put it in the show notes and they can
I forgot about show notes. Like I even do podcasting, totally forgot. So
listen,
oh my goodness.
It's totally fine. Okay, Chassie, real quick, before we go off the rails like we have a tendency to do, I would like you to introduce yourself, if you could do that.
Hi, everyone. If you listened to last week's podcast, you know a little bit about me, but I am a mom to 5 from ages 14 to 5, 4 girls and 1 boy. I've been married for 17 and a half years. I actually got married quite young at 18. My husband was 21, and I went through motherhood for many, many years, thinking that I had to do it all alone. I didn't have a village or a support team. I had my mom, which she's incredible. So if she's listening to this, hi, Mom. She's incredible, and she was there for me, but not in the emotional way that I needed. And so for 10 years, 12 years of motherhood, I was struggling. I had postpartum depression, anxiety after all 5 of my babies. I had 4 colic babies out of 5. I had just very deep, intrusive thoughts and very darkness in my life. And I thought I was happy and a good mom until I noticed I was taking my anger out on my kids. I thought I was a happy and a good mom until I was being absent and distant from my husband or and a good wife. I just thought all these things, but then these things were happening in my life that I was like, this isn't good. Like, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to feel this way. And so after my fifth baby, I had my rock bottom, I call it. It's when I went into my own healing journey, so to speak. I got a life coach, didn't even know what life coaching was at the time. She helped me realize I did have past experiences, unhealed wounds that had come through in my life that were really affecting my motherhood and how I showed up in motherhood. And some of those symptoms that I was experiencing were lack of appetite, just like some physical things, insomnia, and then other emotional things were people pleasing. I could never feel like I was doing enough. I was so hard on myself, couldn't love myself. And everything, every single day just felt like a heavy burden in my life that I could never complete the to-do list. And to a point where I felt that I wanted to take my life from this world. And that was the hardest. That was my breaking point, is when the intrusive thoughts wouldn't stop. That's when I knew I was like, I cannot keep going. And I know a lot of you out there, we hear postpartum depression, anxiety, we go to the doctor, we get medication. For some reason, my heart and soul just said, I don't want medication. I don't want medication. And so I wanted to find a holistic route of healing. And not to say medication is not important and amazing. It truly is. I have clients that are on medication, clients that aren't on medication. And it's just a per person situation. But I chose to not take medication and went through the holistic healing process, which is mindset work, somatic healing, which is trauma healing, body healing, and then also our nervous system regulation work, which has helped me heal from the inside out without taking medication. So here I am today. I became a life coach because it changed my life and transformed me so much, and not in a way that I expected. I didn't get into this healing journey to be like, my life's going to be incredible. I went into it with hope, with I have nothing else to lose. I am at my breaking point. And for most of us, we have to hit the rock bottom to actually get the support and help that we need. And I was praying to Heavenly Father. I was doing the work, spiritual work. I was going to church. I was taking the sacrament. I was taking my kids. I was doing even the mental work of like trying to go for jogs and exercise and read some books, but nothing was working. But what I realized, what I was missing was my body. How do we take care of our bodies and use our bodies and the tool God gave us? And so that's why my programs now are all about mind, body, and soul work. We connect the mind with the soul, which most of you guys have already, and then we add in the body work. And that was the education and tool that I was missing. I was actually hating my body. I hated my emotions, pressing my emotions, numbing them out versus seeing them as all good. All emotions are good because they're all messages to a deeper root to what we're truly feeling, which is usually being a lack of being seen, heard, and loved in some way.
I am really glad that you brought up that piece. I was doing the spiritual things. I was doing, all the things.
Yeah.
And mistakenly, we think that if we are praying and we're reading our scriptures and we're doing those things, we have for some reason come to believe that things will just work out and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then when they're not, that really sends people into a
Yes.
spiritual spiral, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And I actually was just having a conversation with somebody the other day. Like, what is that line between I'm just giving it to God and burying your head in the sand and not doing the things that you need to do?
Yeah.
And having this conversation, I loved the visual that I got from it because the person I was talking to said, we know exactly what it looks like when we give something to God. We know how hard he's working. We have handed him something and he is busy and at work. But the question is, do we then do that same thing on the back end? And do we make it mean like, oh, if I just keep reading my scriptures really hard and I keep praying really hard, or do we actually listen to be guided to the things that God is trying to help us find, which it sounds exactly like, like if we listen, he guides you to the somatic work. He
The
guides you to
people.
people that can help you with the different avenues of help that you personally need.
Yes. But it goes back to that medicine thing too. It's like when you go to the doctor, they're not actually hearing your whole story. They don't know if you've been through trauma or not. They don't know if you've had previous anxiety and depression. They don't know if you come from a divorced family or not. They don't know if you've lost a loved one, like a brother or sibling in your life. They don't know if you've lost a previous baby even. They don't know any of those things. And then they just hand you medication and say, okay, you should feel better, hopefully in 6 months. That is literally the hope that they give us. And I'm so grateful for modern medicine. And I'm so grateful that for so many moms that at least helps them stop the intrusive thoughts and be able to be the mother and a best mother to their child. But it's not actually healing from the inside out what's actually going on emotionally inside your body. It's just giving you a tool to be able to come out of the darkness enough so that you can see some of the light and be able to then start finding tools adding to your toolbox. So it doesn't heal you. It actually just kind of suppresses them some more. And then you're like, oh, I feel better. 6 months later, maybe you do feel better. And you're like, and I got through it and my babies are great and I'm happy and I feel like myself again. But then the coach in me is like, yes, but it didn't actually heal that. So it might resurface again with your next baby and the next baby. And that's why I had postpartum depression anxiety 5 times, because I would get through it each time, but I was pushing it away each time, not actually healing the root cause of it. So I have many clients who come to me that go through the healing process after their second baby, for example, and then they get pregnant with their third baby and they have a completely different postpartum experience. Even if they do have some triggers, again, a little bit of baby blues or a little bit of depression, anxiety, but it's a whole different story because they've already healed all the roots of those triggers.
It's so fascinating to me to listen to that. I am actually doing some nervous system training right now. And the course instructor, Leah Davidson, is amazing. And she had this really great visual, and it made me think of that when you were saying that, like your nervous system gets amped up. And if you were to look at it on a graph, it grows and grows. It goes higher and higher and higher all day long. And if you don't reset it and learn how to, calm back
Bring it back down,
the
right?
next day, it doesn't start from the bottom. It's starting from where you were amped up the day before. And so, I'm looking at that as pregnancies, right? If you have 4 children and your body got amped up and your nervous system amped up with every pregnancy, and you didn't learn how to bring it back down, like the next time, it's not like you're starting from ground zero again. You're starting from the amped up version of you.
And PTSD, honestly.
Yes. And
Yeah,
so,
because you've already had it. Yeah.
yeah. So by the time you're done with your, having children, if you've had 4 children, it like the difference between where you started and where you're finishing is like astronomical if you haven't learned how to work with your nervous system.
Yeah, one of the visualizations I like to use, it's like a balloon and it keeps filling up, and at one point it will explode. The explosion is like the panic attack or, the yelling at your kids or the fighting with your husband, whatever you want to look at it as. So our goal inside nervous system healing is to calm down the balloon, let out some air so that it calms down again, and then it expands again. But that's normal. It's supposed to come in and out. It's supposed to expand and go in decline, right? So go in and out. And that's what some people are afraid of. They're like, they just want all their anxiety and depression to go away. But that's actually not how it works. It actually comes and goes because it'll forever be in our bodies, but we can make it be calmer. We can calm it down quicker. We can let out that air out of the balloon faster. We can be able to use these tools, nervous system, somatic work, whatever work, to calm down that balloon so that you don't get to that point of explosion. That's our goal. And so that you never have a spiral or a panic attack again, because you get to the point and you know your boundaries within yourself of what I need to calm down and let out the air out of my balloon to move that emotion, which is energy in motion, before it gets to that point.
I love visuals. I think it's so helpful.
Me too.
Okay. So in an effort for me to keep myself on task here, talking about where we want to go, because it's so easy for me to just go squirrel, squirrel, and just go everywhere. I'm wondering if you can, and I don't know that we talked about really this specifically in the last episode, but what would you say the difference is between postpartum depression and anxiety? How would you define that difference?
Yeah. So postpartum depression and anxiety usually relates to your baby. Okay. So your baby and yourself, meaning like you don't feel like you're a good enough mother, or you're afraid your baby's not going to wake up in the middle of the night, right? So like you're always checking on them. So postpartum depression and anxiety relates to you and your child, and then of course how that child makes you feel too, vice versa. Whereas depression and anxiety is not stemmed or specifically related to your child. It's you and the past versions of you.
Okay. Thank you for helping me see that clear. And what then makes this experience unique compared to trauma, like other depression and trauma? Is there a difference, or is it, how would you say that?
It's not really a big difference, actually. Yeah. That's why all the tools work the same within just anxiety and depression healing and postpartum depression, anxiety and healing, because it's the same tools. It's the same regulation. It's the same nervous system healing. You have, like, say, a traumatic birth, that's still a trauma, right? So even though it's really specific to motherhood and things like that, it's still a trauma. So there's not a huge difference. And that's why I say all the time, postpartum depression, anxiety is also the same as anxiety and depression like that you've had. It just exasperates whatever you had
Okay.
previous to on top of it.
Okay. I think we talked a little bit last time about how postpartum depression is often a byproduct of the dysregulated system and unresolved trauma, like things from our childhood and relationships or even birth trauma from previous. So I think if you haven't listened to that episode, make sure you go back and catch that so that you can kind of close that circle of that conversation there. But I'm wondering then now if we can talk about why some mothers are more affected by this than other mothers.
Right. So there are like 20 a list, it's like 30, literally 30 points long of why. So like a teenage mother would be more likely to have postpartum depression anxiety. Coming from a divorced home is more likely to have depression. Coming from like maybe you saw something as a child you shouldn't have seen, like it's very traumatic in your life. It could be, so there's all these statistics that add up of like why you're more likely to be susceptible to postpartum depression anxiety. This is a thing though, no one can figure out exactly what causes it. It just comes, and it can come to someone who's, like the royal princess Catherine, Kate, she had postpartum depression anxiety, but then also this other mom didn't. And she doesn't have like peoples and helpers and all of these different things. So it's like, it doesn't matter who you are, it's going to come to you, but it comes from all these different stressors or factors. I don't have the list in front of me, but just for example, those are some of them, like from coming from a divorced family, having half siblings. It could even be, like I mentioned before, it could be like your grandmother died. It could be the divorce rates. All those different factors, external factors, affect you within your motherhood once you become a mom. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that is very intriguing to me. And curious then if, like, do those same things affect people experiencing depression and anxiety as well? Or is it just more connected to postpartum depression and anxiety?
Same.
Okay.
So it comes through the same. So a lot of times I'm noticing, I don't know if you are with like clients and different people and in this work, but I'm noticing that teenagers and young adults aren't feeling their depression anxiety yet. That's because they're still coping with it. They're still numbing it. They're still not really experiencing it in their lives, and they think it's normal. They actually don't know that's not normal to live the life that they're living. And then usually around 29 and 30, that's when our nervous system and our bodies break. That's that burnout that a lot of 30-year-olds, it's about the average age where that break is happening. There has been a lot of also around the ages 19 to 21, a lot of kids are noticing they have depression, anxiety. That's when it hits them. So specifically in like high stressor environments, we've seen a lot of missionaries come home with the mental health because of that, the high stress, and them feeling like they're not enough or worthy enough to be on the mission because they give themselves so much hate and guilt and shame. That comes from anxiety and depression. So we have a lot of missionaries going through those experiences. If you were, say, like you got in a relationship at 20 years old and say the man was, abusive emotionally or physically, then it resurfaces all that anxiety and depression too. So it's like very extreme things that are happening to the ages 19, 21. Otherwise, we're seeing it around ages 30 to 35 on average.
I'm just like, my wheels are turning looking at that. I talked with one of the coaches who works with people who are missionaries, return missionaries. And another thing that I thought was interesting, and you kind of alluded to this, is that when they leave to go on missions, they no longer have those things that they were using for numbing to
The
avoid the
phones,
feel.
the
Yes.
friends. Yes.
Those are gone. And so it's like a crash course in having to deal with the emotions that they are all of a sudden feeling because they don't have the things to ignore them, to numb them out.
And then they're going to, this is a whole topic, but yeah, we're going off topic. But like, then they go to the mission president and he doesn't know trauma and healing, and they can't support them in that because it's like a mental health, mental health
Yes.
thing. And then they're like, okay, just like, I forgive you, God forgives you, but they can't forgive themselves. They know
Yeah.
God forgives them.
Well, and really, God, I mean, like, what do they have to be forgiven? And that's a hard thing for too, right? Like, if
Yeah.
there's probably some things that maybe that they need to be forgiven
Sure.
of, but just that, even the language of that, like, God
Yeah.
forgives you,
Law,
just in and of
chastity, or word of
itself,
wisdom.
like,
Yeah.
is this message that is like, and that must mean something's wrong with you. And so it just kind of is this vicious cycle. I think that missionary bubble is a little bit tricky. So
Yes. And And so they don't have mom and dad there. They're on their own. They're living on their own. They don't have their coping mechanisms and tools. They never learned how to cope or deal with the emotions that they had, or never brought them forward because they didn't know how to communicate them. And then they get on their mission and it all hits them at once. It's just like motherhood. You get into motherhood and it all hits you at once. What do you do with that? What do you do with
That's
it?
true. That's true. It's like this pressure cooker all of a sudden that
Yeah.
you have to figure it out or it explodes.
No one tells you when you sign up to be a mother, you're signing up to be a co-regulator for the rest of your life. Nobody
Forever and ever.
prepares you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. And
It is.
it's beautiful and difficult all at the same time. But that's what makes it beautiful, I guess. So
Yes. Yes. But I was 10 years in until I learned my co-regulation tools, right? I'm like, wow, that would have been nice to have 10 years ago, but I didn't know how to keep myself calm to be really present and help my kids with their emotions, right?
for sure, for sure. But what a beautiful thing you are teaching your children and offering them
Absolutely.
those tools and helping them see that there are things that that they probably don't even recognize that they are being taught in their life. So
Yes,
I
my
think that's
5-year-old
awesome.
is more emotionally intelligent than I can even imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah, she is.
that's awesome.
Yes, but she's been in the whole healing the whole time with me, right? So she got the best version of mom, bless her, lucky her. And so she's been able to, she was 8 months old when I started my healing. So she's
Okay.
been able to I've been able to be a different mother throughout her whole life. Whereas
Yeah.
my older kids remember a different mother in a different way. And there's been a lot of repairing, and you can
Yes.
repair. You can go back and heal what's already happened, by the way. So yeah.
One of my daughters has said, I specifically remember the shift in you when I started doing some of this healing in myself. She's like, you were a different parent, and I remember. And anyway, so
Wow.
that's pretty interesting and
Proud
humbling
of
at the
you.
same time.
I'm very proud of you. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
When your own daughter
Like,
comes to you and
ooh.
is having anxiety because you caused the anxiety, I'm like, okay, let me own this one. You're right. Yes,
Yeah,
let's talk
for
it
sure.
through. And I'm
For
so
sure.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can segue that into just this conversation, which is a lot of people really hesitate to look to their past because they fear it will be hard. They think there's no good in looking to the past
You're
and
right.
digging all of that up.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear that a lot, actually.
Me too.
And
In all my a lot of my consultations
yes,
sound like that.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, how is it that we can help people revisit their stories for healing rather than reopening those old wounds? And I think
Yeah.
this is important for, us as coaches to recognize that people have these fears, which I'm pretty sure most of us do recognize that. But also for people who are listening who are afraid of seeking help because this piece really kind of scares them.
And it is scary. And I
Yeah.
want you to validate yourself into that. It is super scary. And that's why your body's like, I don't want to go to a therapist or a coach. It resists going through those doors that you've been resisting all these years because that's been your protection all these years. That's why I call it all these, you're walking down a hallway with all these doors. I think I said that in the last podcast, but it's all these doors that you've never truly walked through. You peek in, you look in, you feel them, and you close that door. But as being your coach and as my job, that's my job to help you feel safe, to open that up, to not be afraid, and we walk through it together. And that in itself is so empowering, just saying it out loud. A lot of the deep, dark secrets or emotions and feelings that you've been experiencing. So something that I like to bring forward is that our past, once we heal it, it becomes wisdom for our future, right? We can see it as wisdom. And so when you hear the word inner child work or you think about that, if you Google that, it's probably going to be you go and you sit with your inner child and we go through the whole experience and all of that. I do inner child work, but not in that way. So what I mean by that is inner child work is basically, God says, be like little children in the Bible. And basically what we do is we go back to the past experience. We do not list out every detail or every single thing that happened, but we go back to realize where that pain rooted from. Where is that pain that I'm feeling now? For example, if you were a child that was in your room by yourself, maybe that's where that was your escape. You would get in trouble, you'd run to your room, or maybe your parents fought a lot, so you went to your room by yourself. If anyone pushes you to the side, even if it's your spouse or your partner, and they're like, hey, I might leave you, or we're not doing good, I might leave you. That's a huge abandonment wound. That's because as a child, you were always in your room by yourself and you felt alone and abandoned. So as your coach, I'd be like, listen, when you were in that room, what would you tell your own daughter sitting there or your own son sitting there? I coach fathers too. What would you tell that boy? Would you tell him, you're not alone. You are loved. You are enough. You have done nothing wrong to sit in this room all by yourself and to be alone. I'm right here with you. That is the healing work that we do. And we go back to the inner child to remother or refather that child. So then that child, as a present adult now, doesn't get triggered back to that moment in their room sitting by themselves. They feel empowered, they feel loved, they feel seen, and they feel heard. And so while it seems scary to go back to the past and relive it, we are going to relive it for a moment, but we're going to remother or reparent and love that child that deserved that love, because now it's your responsibility today as an adult to take care of your healing now. And then you have to relieve your parents from that and forgive them. And that's a whole nother topic. And forgiveness doesn't even mean forgetting what happened to you, but it's forgiving so that you can live your life to the fullest and the happiest and with the most light. And so we go back, we do all that, and then we come forward. And now that's our root. That's our message. Meaning when you feel that abandonment wound again, guess what? You go back into that inner child and tell that inner child, it's okay, I'm safe, calm down, we're safe. We're okay. Your wife right now or your husband right now is not leaving you, going to work, and abandoning you. You are not all alone. You are loved. And that's why it's so powerful. And that's why it's called somatic healing, because we're going into the body. And someone asked me, a client said, how do you heal? Like, how do you actually heal? And I said, when you replace love with pain. That's how you heal. And that's why it's so important to do inner child work, or if you want to call it past experience work, or if you want to call it whatever you want to call it. You don't have to call it inner child, but there's so many scriptures in the Bible about us being like little children, and God wants us to be like little children because we do follow him. We lean on him. We're naive. We listen. We follow. And when we come back into that inner child and love that inner child, there's a part of you that feels different, because you are different, because you finally feel seen, heard, and loved in the way you know you deserved it as a child. And that's the coolest part. So something else, a little metaphor for you, or another little visual for you, is I like to look at it this way. Think about the whole church. Like, look at all the past experiences that have happened in the church. Polygamy, blacks not being in the church, getting the priesthood, all these different things. If we didn't go back and revisit that and learn that wisdom, it would look very different today what our church looked like. It is history so that we have the wisdom and knowledge to not repeat the patterns that have happened that aren't always positive within the church. It's the same within your life. You go back to get the wisdom to not repeat the patterns. What is the Bible? Stories on stories on stories of all these prophets and their lives, history to teach us what to do, what not to do, and what patterns to lead and not lead. It's the same thing.
So fantastic to look at it that way. And what a gift for us to recognize that because for so many people, we think, what good is it going to do to go dig up those wounds and look through it? And because I don't have any control over it, I'm not the one that caused that harm. And what a gift for us to realize that we actually do have power and authority to do that.
Yes,
we can do that. And we are not just at the mercy of somebody else's actions that were put upon us 20 years ago or however
and
long
hating
ago
ourselves.
It was. Yes, right?
Yeah.
Like we have the ability to do that. And what a gift that is.
Yeah. And then if you want to add Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ into that, literally, what does God want you to know? That he loves you and only you, and you are perfect how you are. And if you believe that, and when you speak to yourself like God even would, of course everything changes in your life. And so that's why it's like I'm so big into this work, because it's that mind, body, and soul, and you truly figure out what your gifts are that God gave you to in the process of healing. Because so many of us are like, I don't know, I don't feel fulfilled in my life, and I don't know what my purpose is. I hear that all the time. What is my purpose? And I'm always like, well, everyone's purpose is to share your light and love. Everyone's purpose is that. Everyone does it in different ways. Some people do it like me, coaching. Some people do it quietly. They're the quiet people who like go and send treats on everyone's doors. Some people are the ones who are always taking other people's kids. Some people are at the grocery store smiling at someone. We're all sharing that love and light of Jesus Christ, and that's our purpose. But you can't share that purpose if you're stuck in your own pain and being the victim.
So I am in a master's program right now, and it is one of my professors has like 5 master's degrees and a PhD, and she's a pastor. And I wish that everybody could sit in on her classes because she is like the queen of know who you are and share it with everybody because
Yep,
because God can't do his work within us or all the other people if we are not living our life in authority of who we are.
that's right.
And I just want to sing her praises and stand up and say amen. I
Yes,
mean,
amen.
it is a Christian university that I'm going through, so it's not unusual that that's happening, but I want everybody to recognize that so much that God's work in his glory is for us to know who we are and live into that person to our fullest. And he is always trying to help us see who we are and show us the divinity inside of us. And when we can figure
Yeah,
that out and we start shedding those layers, we're unstoppable. There's so much.
unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I said this on the last podcast, but what's the one thing Satan doesn't have is our body, and he doesn't have a body. And so, in the scriptures it says like the world would be over or consumed with illness, like towards the second coming. And I'm going to make a bold statement here. I'm going to be very bold.
Well, I
I
like bold
truly
statements.
believe, I truly believe, yes, COVID happened and that was crazy, right? That was insane. I truly believe mental illness is the illness that he's talking about. Anxiety, depression, because it takes you away from Heavenly Father, it takes you away from Jesus Christ so that you cannot share your gifts in your light when you feel like the victim in your life.
I can't disagree with you because there is like
I
that
was
is
like,
the
you can agree
thing.
to disagree, but I truly believe that is what's taking over the world. Truly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's rampant and
It's
it's
rapid.
yeah, and I don't know. We could talk forever on that. So,
Right.
okay, Chassie, why we're winding up here and you've kind of seeded these little thoughts throughout, but you did mention in the first podcast that we did together, part 1, that your depression and your anxiety postpartum really shook your testimony and your faith. And I would really love if you could maybe wrap that up for us. Like, how do you see the connection between your mind, body, and the nervous system? You've kind of shared that with us, but how did it deepen your faith? How were you able to go from having this spiritual spiral in some way to having the faith that you feel that you live in now?
Yeah. Ooh, that's such a good question. And I'm trying to like think about in my mind of how I want to describe that. But basically, going into that deep darkness, it was the worst, best thing that ever happened. And I don't wish it on anyone. I always say that in my testimonies. I say that all the time because everything I knew up to that point, I didn't believe in. And we all go through different trials of coming back to God. And, our testimony ebbs and flows. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up and down. And I had to go down, the downest I've ever been to be able to stand where I am today with the 2 feet and the confidence that I have and the love that I have to share. And it comes from me learning exactly who God is. And I think I said this too on the podcast. I said, when I was running in the rain, pleading with God to heal me and save me and see me and love me, he goes, get to know who I am. And I realized quickly that I hadn't been studying my scriptures really for years. I mean, being a mom with like 4 kids, 5 kids under 10 years old, 8 years old, it just was very hard for me to study. And I've learned that God speaks to me through the scriptures. I didn't know that until I went through that deep, deep crisis. And I had to relearn who God was. I had to know if he loved me or not. I had to separate religion from God first, too. Who are you, God, with religion? Who are you, God, without religion? And I had to really study the faith and my work and the gospel of Jesus Christ to really understand who God was. And so when I went through all that, I come out the other side. By the way, I came out the other side because I got gospel doctrine teacher calling and I had to study for 2 years. And God's like, hey, you prayed for this. I was like, oh my goodness. And he's not wrong. I did, but I did not how I expected to learn who he was, by the way. And it literally changed my whole entire testimony and my life because for once I finally understood who God was in my life. I can be angry at God still, but I know who he is. I know he loves me. I know he's there for me. I can know exactly what the atonement is for because the atonement worked in my life. He sent me the exact people I needed to help me heal and all the things. And then number 3, it changed my whole life because I realized that who I was in motherhood, that was one of my gifts was being a mother and sharing them with my kids. And I realized like overall what my purpose is in this life. And I know my purpose is to have a very mighty, strong testimony of Jesus Christ and Heavenly Father, and not being afraid to share that. I could not have shared my testimony or even talked to you today, Heather, if it wasn't for me going through all that. I was a hermit because I was afraid to be myself. I was afraid to share my light and my love. And I was afraid that I had to be this perfect person, this perfect mom, this perfect wife, or I wasn't going to go to heaven, or I wasn't going to be obedient enough, or I wasn't going to be, all these things went through my mind. And then I realized, no, the whole point of the atonement is he fills the gaps that I can't be, live up to in perfection. And he fills the gaps where I struggle, and he is always there for me. And yeah, it just transformed my whole life because my entire body changed, my mindset changed, and my soul changed because I finally understood why God gave me my body in the first place.
Yeah. Well,
Why
and
do we have it,
I would dare to say that you weren't living your light, you weren't being you, because you were still like waffling in trying to figure that out. Like you have to really come to own that person and own your gifts, and that takes also, it's like tandem in coming to know who God and the Savior are. Like as that knowledge increases, so does the knowledge of who we are. They go so close together.
Yes, yes. And just to share like some of my client results, like basically what they get out of that healing and that mind, body, and soul work is they realize very quickly how amazing of mom they are. They are able to let go of guilt. They're able to let go of blaming themselves or shaming themselves for something that happened to someone else, even in their lives, like relationships, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts. They're able to get the new career they always thought they could never get. They're able to, they completely move and go different places. They finally see themselves as like, no, I'm not like stuck where I am. I'm allowed to go live my life. And living is understanding their values. So they learn their values are what time is, how time is so valuable in our lives. Time, love, and death are the three things that people think about daily without them even knowing they're thinking about it. And so we go deep into that too of like, what is time? What are your values? Because wherever you spend your time, that's your mission that God gave you. You get to choose it. Yeah.
I feel like we should end with that.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Chassie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
These conversations have really blessed my life and have given me a lot of things to think about. And that's my favorite thing about a conversation is walking
Same.
away with my brain being intrigued and opened and my heart being touched. So I appreciate that.
Yes,
Before
thank you.
we sign off, can you tell people how they can connect with you?
Yes, Instagram is my best way to connect, and it's at Chassie Cox, spelled ChassieCox. It'll be in the show notes, I'm sure. And then also Coach Chassie Cox, Facebook.com/Coach Chassie Cox. And then chassiecox@gmail.com. If you just want to directly email me, that's a great way. So Instagram is my best way. Just DM me on Instagram and let's have a conversation. I do offer free consultations. Your first session's always free for 1 hour because I want to get to know you and I want you to get to know me. And then also I do have resources and we're going to link that. It's Not Too Late to Heal free video class for you guys. It's only like 40 minutes long for you to listen in and how you can start healing today with your kids in your life.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm excited for people to get these tools into their hands. So visit our show notes and grab them. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody, for being here with us today. And we will see you again next week. Have a good one.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.